Hey, Breaking Brown fam. Hey, Your Black World family. And I'm coming to you today with a story about a Georgia police officer who did something that I think was very important. Yes, he was a racist cop, just like we've seen a lot of racist cops. We've seen a lot of cops who aren't necessarily racist, but don't value human life. But what this police officer did to me was so important in terms of encapsulating everything that's wrong with like racist cops who go out here and just don't have any value for human life, don't have any value for black people and black life. The story's up at breakingbrown.com, but let me just give you a quick synopsis of what happened. This cop pulls over a black driver. He pulls over the black driver and, he gives him a couple of tickets. The black driver asks a very simple question. He says, after the officer has finished writing the tickets, he asks the officer, "Can I go?" For reasons that are inexplicable to a normal person, the officer gets extremely upset and annoyed. And so the officer starts mocking the African-American driver. And the guy says, the African-American driver asks, "Can I go?" And the officer's like, "Can I go?" And he's like, "Can I go?" He's like, "Can I go?" And he gets into this like third grade thing with the African-American driver who happens to be a middle school teacher. So at that point, after the officer does his little taunting and mocking, he says to the guy, he says, "You go back to Fulton County. I don't care about your people." Yeah, you heard me right. He said, "I don't care about your people. Get out of here. Go back to Fulton County." Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Georgia, Fulton County is Atlanta, and the driver could have been from Fulton County. The officer had seen his license, but what he's basically saying is, go back to your black neighborhood. What is so spectacular about this incident is that it really showed just how this guy just asking a question to this white police officer set him off just like that. And then when the black man drives away and the white police officer talks to his other two, white comrades or cohorts or whatever you want to call them, he says, I just can't deal with that. It sets me off every time. And I can't believe that I guess this is the America that we live in. And the cop, who is devoid of any sense of self-reflection at all, he's obviously a moron. But the cop doesn't understand at any point that there was no problem until you made a problem. Like, why would you say, is this something that I have to deal with? You didn't have to do with anything. The only thing you had to do was answer the man's question. Can I leave? A simple yes or no would have been appropriate. But instead, you go back to kindergarten, the third grade. He's like, "Can I go?" And you start mocking the guy for asking you a perfectly legitimate question. And then you play the victim. Is this what I have to deal with? Deal with what? There's nothing to deal with that a grown person, who doesn't have any sort of racist intent can't deal with. There's nothing to deal with. Answer the question. And so even more apparent than the fact that the guy was just, an asshole and a racist asshole was the fact that what you're dealing with in a lot of these police officers is that you have people in grown bodies who are boys who just couldn't even handle the fact that this black guy was asking him a question. So his response was, "Go back to Fulton County. I don't care about your people." And then he plays the victim. You see what I have to deal with. And that is what we have to face. Like, that is the issue. What we have to face on a day-to-day basis is not only this sort of racist reaction and overreaction, but then the guy walks away feeling like this cop walked away feeling like he had been victimized by the black guy. Because how dare you ask me a question? How dare you ask me if I can leave? Now, if the black guy had just drove off, he would have shot him. Oh, and I left one thing out. Let's go back to the video. The guy asked him, "Can I leave?" And then the black guy, when the cop says what he said about, I don't care about your people, the black guy basically says, "Hey, what are you talking about? My people, what's that have to do with?" And the cop is like, "Oh, just go away." And then he's like, "Well, you can get out of your car, if you want to talk to me about it." Basically, the cop is like challenging this guy. He's like goading him now. He's like, that's like, if anybody, I don't know if any of you all remember what it was like in high school and people would Jones and you and people would make fun of you or whatever. And that's what this cop is doing. And he's trying, it's almost as if, well, it's not almost, it feels like he's trying to antagonize this black guy into like hopping out of the car and like engaging him in some way. And so that to me was indicative of what so many police officers do. in terms of what you're supposed to do is de-escalate. What you're supposed to do as a police officer is de-escalate. What this officer did is escalate the entire situation. He racially escalated the entire situation in a racially inflammatory way. Instead of just answering this guy's question and saying, yes, you can go, or no, you can't go just yet, he taunts the guy, and then he encourages the guy to get out for what was either a shouting match or a fight. You know, and then when he walks away from the car, he blames the black guy for asking the question. So I think if like I said, the video's up at Breaking Brown, and I really want people to see this video simply because of what it shows about the dysfunctional minds that some of these sort of racists have. And that's why I honestly consider racism a sort of learned or conditioned mental illness, because this guy, when he got home, I'm sure he was talking about how bad he was, treated or talked to by the black guy. And that's not, it wasn't any sort of ill treatment that set you off. What set you off was the question, can I go? You didn't feel that this black guy had the right to pose that question to you. And really he does. He has the right to pose that question to you. And you don't have a right to tell him where to go or where not to go. As an American citizen living in this country, he has the right to drive through. This was in Cobb County, Georgia. He has the right to drive through Cobb County, Georgia, whenever he pleases. And you are just a hired hand. You're not someone who can tell this black man where he can go or where he should be. And the fact that this police officer says, I get upset. He said something to the effect of, this gets me every time, or they upset me every time. If you are this easy to be upset, if you are a grown man and you have absolutely no control over your temper, you have absolutely no control over going from 0 to 100. If you are still as a grown man like a child in a sandbox, if you are still a toddler, you shouldn't be a police officer. So currently this is, the Cobb County has already issued a letter of apology to the black man. The black man is represented, the black driver, he is represented by an attorney. The officer has been reassigned pending an investigation. But my hope, and I hope you of all who are watching this and who live in Cobb County, I would encourage you to encourage your police department, if you're in the area, to let this guy go. He doesn't need to be on anybody's police force. He's a child. He's a grown man in a grown man's body, but he's a child, and he's a racist child. And those are the most worrisome and bothersome police officers. And I really wish you would watch the video just to see how this guy just goes from goes from 0 to 100 and plays the victim, because that's the real truth. It's always funny to me how people accuse black people of playing the victim. And really what you see is white people who are kind of, white racists typically, not white people in general, because white people can be good allies. But you have white racists in general who play the victim and just say, oh, it's reverse discrimination. Oh, well, it's the blacks who are doing this. It's the blacks who are taking the job. Let me tell you. The fact that this economy is crumbling has nothing to do with black people. That has to do with globalization. And globalization is a system that was put in place by, wait for it, white people, mostly white men. So if you have a problem with that, your problem isn't with black people. Your problem is with your brothers. Your problem isn't with us. Your problem isn't with black people. So I think this video, more than a lot of videos I've seen, really hones in on the dysfunctional, underdeveloped mind that leads to these sort of deadly incidents. Because there's no doubt in my mind that the black driver of this car probably would have been dead had he done what the cop kind of tried to goad him into, which was get out of the car. So watch the video, and I'd be curious to know what you think. Till next time.